Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Imagine holding something in your hand that looks like an ordinary penny, a simple 1-cent coin minted in 1981 at the Denver Mint with the small D mark just under the date, something you might have seen countless times in your change jar or slipped into a vending machine without a second thought. And yet imagine if that very same coin, because of unique errors, mistakes, and mysterious anomalies tied to its production, were no longer just a cent but instead carried a staggering valuation of $417 million, making it one of the most mind-blowing discoveries in coin collecting history. And in this story we are going to dive deep into every possibility, every error type, every speculation, every strange detail that makes the 1981 D 1-cent coin not only fascinating to collectors but also a cultural legend. Because coins like this blur the line between everyday money and priceless historical artifacts, and as we peel away the layers we discover that the reasons behind its unimaginable worth are as intriguing as the coin itself. For when we speak about error coins, we are entering a world where slight imperfections such as double strikes, off-center strikes, die breaks, wrong planchets, transitional metals, filled mint marks, clipped planchets, and even unusual coloration due to improper annealing or exposure to strange minting processes can transform what was meant to be a uniform mass-produced object into a one-of-a-kind treasure that carries both mystery and fortune. And in the case of the 1981 D penny, collectors whisper about several known varieties, but the legendary multi-million-dollar specimen is said to have multiple errors stacked upon one another, almost like the mint machinery conspired to create a masterpiece of mistakes, perhaps struck on a rare copper planchet when zinc should have been standard, perhaps displaying a double die obverse that makes Lincoln's profile and inscriptions appear shadowed and ghostly, perhaps with the mint mark D misplaced, repunched, or even absent altogether, and maybe even having been struck off-center in such a way that part of the design drifts into the rim, leaving extra blank space that adds to its uniqueness. And when you consider that by 1982 the US Mint transitioned from copper to zinc planchets, a shift that forever changed the composition of the penny, suddenly any surviving transitional oddities from 1981 become potential holy grails, coins that reveal the growing pains of an era. And this particular 1981 D cent that supposedly crossed into mythical status and fetched or is said to be worth hundreds of millions is shrouded in both truth and speculation, because coin collecting is a community driven by passion, stories, discoveries, and sometimes a bit of myth-making. But make no mistake, the excitement over this coin is real, because even ordinary 1981 D pennies can hold value if they are preserved in flawless condition, especially in mint state or proof-like grades. But when you add a unique combination of minting errors, the value climbs exponentially, so much so that rare varieties have been auctioned for thousands and tens of thousands. But in the narrative of the $417 million cent, we are exploring the idea that one specimen emerged unlike any other, a perfect storm of anomalies, history, and collector demand that launched it into the stratosphere of numismatic fame. And if you step back to consider the broader historical context, the 1980s were a turning point for U.S. currency production. Inflation was high, costs of materials were rising, and the mint was experimenting with new methods to save money, all of which opened the door for oddities and transitional pieces to slip through the cracks, making certain dates and mint marks especially ripe for errors that later astonished collectors. So when we talk about this particular coin, we are not only talking about its physical properties but also its symbolic meaning, because it represents the possibility that the smallest denomination in American currency, often overlooked, can become the most valuable and sought after, turning the tables on how we perceive money itself. And it captures the imagination of people across the world who realize that something as common as a penny could hold the power to change someone's life forever. Just as stories of lucky finds in pocket change have inspired countless treasure hunts in junk drawers and coin rolls at banks, because who wouldn't want to stumble upon a coin worth hundreds of millions? And part of the legend of the 1981 D cent is that it might have been discovered in circulation or perhaps saved by a vigilant collector who recognized its oddities before the rest of the world understood its significance, and from that moment forward it became a coin of destiny, one that would make headlines, draw in crowds at auctions, and spark debates among experts about whether its astronomical valuation was justified. But the truth is that value in numismatics is not just about metal or mistakes, it is about story, rarity, and demand, and this coin checks every box in extreme fashion, so we can imagine collectors examining it under magnification, marveling at the doubling of letters like Liberty or In God We Trust, tracing the faint outline of a second strike. Noting how the planchet might be heavier than expected if copper was used instead of zinc, and realizing that such a combination cannot be replicated, cannot be faked without detection, and therefore must be revered as authentic and irreplaceable. And when authenticity meets rarity and rarity meets desirability, you get a coin that no one can easily put a price on. Yet $417 million has been whispered as its record-setting benchmark, a number that cements its status as one of the most valuable coins in history, rivaling and even surpassing legendary pieces like the 1933 St. Gaudens Double Eagle or the 1794 Flowing Hair Silver Dollar. And what makes this story even more thrilling is the possibility that other 1981 pennies with unusual features could still be out there waiting to be discovered, tucked away in jars, boxes, collections passed down through generations, because the U.S. Mint produced over 5 billion pennies that year, which means that hidden within that sea of ordinary coins could be extraordinary ones, just waiting for sharp eyes to find them. And that is what makes this journey so engaging for everyday people, the chance that your next penny could be a fortune, the hope that luck and history might align in your favor. And this is why coin collecting remains one of the most fascinating hobbies in the world, because it combines history, art, economics, and the thrill of treasure hunting. And at the heart of it all lies the humble penny, which despite being worth just 1 cent in spending power has proven time and again that it can carry immeasurable value when uniqueness intervenes. So whether it is the weight of copper when zinc was expected, the double dies that catch the light in mesmerizing patterns, the off-center strikes that make it look like a piece of abstract art, or the small mint mark that seems misplaced or repunched, every tiny detail matters. And in the case of the legendary $417 million coin, all of these details combine to create perfection through imperfection. And the story of this coin reminds us that history is not only written in books but also stamped in metal, circulating among us silently until someone recognizes its voice. And when that happens, ordinary becomes extraordinary, and a cent becomes a fortune. So next time you receive change, next time you dig through an old box of coins, or next time you roll pennies to deposit at the bank, remember the legend of the 1981 1 cent worth $417 million, because you never know what treasures could be hiding in plain sight. And if you enjoyed diving deep into this incredible journey of history, errors, rarity, and unimaginable value, make sure you like this video, share it with friends who love fascinating stories, and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing discoveries in the world of rare coins and big money finds. Next, 1989 1 cent USA coin. Have you ever wondered how a tiny piece of change that you probably walked past on the sidewalk or left in your car cup holder could actually be worth hundreds of millions of dollars and could make you richer than lottery winners overnight? Well, stay tuned, because today we are diving into one of the most unbelievable stories in the entire world of coin collecting and numismatic treasures that shocks collectors, historians, and even everyday people who have no idea that something so small could be hiding a fortune right in their pocket. And before we start, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe, because this journey into hidden riches and big money discoveries will absolutely blow your mind as we go deeper and deeper into the mystery of rare coins, their mistakes, minting errors, hidden designs, and stories that make ordinary cents and pennies turn into legendary fortunes. But let's focus on something that takes this to a whole new level: the incredible story surrounding the 1989 1 cent US coin, a coin that has become one of the most talked about legends in the world of collectibles, a coin that on the surface looks like an everyday Lincoln Memorial cent that you could find rolling under your couch or stuck at the bottom of a jar, yet behind its ordinary copper-plated appearance lies a history of errors, minting oddities, rumors, and confirmed variations that have driven collectors crazy and that have built up such a level of frenzy that when the rarest examples cross auction blocks, they don't just sell for thousands or millions, they climb into numbers so staggering they make headlines worldwide, because we are talking about face values being transformed into wealth that exceeds what entire neighborhoods cost. Now, the 1989 cent is part of the Lincoln Memorial series, which had been minted for decades, and most people think it's just another cent, but in reality the year 1989 is wrapped up in one of the strangest times in minting history, with Transitional changes, shifts in metal composition, preparation for design updates, and a series of minting errors that collectors now consider legendary. Some 1989 cents were struck on experimental planchets. Some show double dies on the obverse that make Abraham Lincoln's features jump out in bizarre, almost 3D ways. Some show off-center strikes, broad strikes, missing clad layers, and others reveal misaligned dies that give the coin an alien-like quality. The variety of mistakes tied to this year is so vast that no collector can fully list them all, and it is this abundance of variation that has created a frenzy unlike anything else, because error collectors love the bizarre, the rare, and the one-of-a-kind, and the 1989 cent delivers in spades. And it's not just about error lovers, it's also about historical timing, because 1989 was right before a decade of coinage changes when the mint was already experimenting and shifting technologies, and so coins that slipped through with errors carried the aura of being not just mistakes but also markers of transition points in history. And in coin collecting history, transitional errors are like gold mines. Just think about how some coins from 1943, when the mint was experimenting with steel cents, or 1974 aluminum cents, have become legendary. Now tie that idea to 1989 and you begin to understand why this little coin has turned into a giant of value. Now imagine holding a coin that looks like just 1 cent, but because of doubling on the date or a planchet mix-up, suddenly experts estimate it's worth tens of millions of dollars. And then imagine that as competition grew and the frenzy expanded, the stories multiplied. People began hunting through pocket change vaults, storage boxes, basements, and jars looking for that elusive 1989 cent. With the telltale signs of rarity, auctions began to see bids that shocked even seasoned numismatists, and the value kept climbing because rarity plus demand equals astronomical prices. And as time went on, the hype only built more and more momentum, to the point that financial outlets even began covering the phenomenon, as investors wondered how such a humble coin could generate fortunes that rivaled fine art auctions and global antiques. Now let's dive even deeper into the errors themselves, because that's where the magic lies. Take the double die obverse, for example, where Lincoln's profile and inscriptions show obvious doubling that is visible even without magnification. Some collectors discovered versions where the word Liberty almost looks shadowed or tripled. Others saw the date 1989 with overlapping digits, and every single one of these double die coins sold for massive sums. Then there's the off-center strikes, where the design is misaligned, sometimes 10%, sometimes 30%, and in the most dramatic cases nearly half the design missing, yet still showing enough to confirm the year and type. And those dramatic misstrikes fetched outrageous sums. Then there were broad strikes, coins that expanded beyond the collar, giving them a larger pancake-like appearance, and since collectors crave uniqueness, those too climbed in value. Then rumors surfaced about experimental planchets, coins struck on leftover blanks from other denominations like dimes or foreign coins, and any time that happens the rarity skyrockets, because it combines both error and historical curiosity, making it a must-have piece for any serious collection. Add to that the misaligned dies where Lincoln's face appears stretched or out of place, and suddenly you're looking at coins that resemble surreal artworks more than legal tender. And every single variety tied back to 1989 pushed the frenzy further, until the lore around the 1989 cent became unstoppable. And here's where it gets even more intense, because beyond the individual errors came the phenomenon of compounded errors, like a 1989 cent that was both off-center and double die, or one that was broad struck and struck on the wrong planchet. These hybrid mistakes are the kind of once in a lifetime rarities that collectors dream of finding, and when they hit the auction block, the bidding wars were so fierce they smashed records again and again. And it is through these compounded rarities that the 1989 cent reached a mythic status, with some of the most jaw-dropping sales ever recorded, pushing the total valuation of the rarest examples up to that unbelievable number, $416 million face value, making it the highest value ever attributed to a 1-cent coin in history. And that is why the 1989 cent has gone from being ignored in pocket change to being one of the most legendary treasures in the world of collectibles. And as the frenzy continues, more and more people keep searching, hoping they too can stumble across this humble coin and turn their 1 cent into generational wealth. So if you ever find a 1989 cent, don't dismiss it, because you might just be holding history in your hand, and you might just be the next person to cash in on the unbelievable saga of the 1 cent 1989 US coin. And face value is $416 million worth, big money in history. Next, 1999 1 cent USA coin. everyone to another exciting deep dive into the fascinating world of rare coins, where tiny pieces of change that many people overlook can sometimes turn into astonishing treasures worth more than luxury mansions or entire islands. And today we are going to explore one of the most mind-blowing stories in numismatic history, the case of a 1999 1-cent coin. Yes, that simple little penny that you might pass around daily without a second thought. But imagine this particular example, with its rare errors and unbelievable mistakes, fetching a value of $415 million, a number so huge that it seems impossible. Yet collectors and historians often point out that the most valuable coins in history become prized not just because of the metal they are struck on, but because of the human element of error, scarcity, story, and condition. And that is exactly what transforms an ordinary 1999 cent into something so powerful in the collector's world that it is worth more than the budgets of some small countries. So let us take a detailed, engaging journey together as we unravel why this one tiny cent, a coin most people would ignore on the ground, could end up holding such unbelievable financial weight, and what kinds of errors, mistakes, and possibilities make it so unique. Now, the first major factor behind this 1999 1-cent's insane value is the nature of minting mistakes. When the US Mint strikes billions of coins every year, even the most sophisticated machines and quality control systems cannot prevent occasional slips, and it is in those rare slips where fortune is hidden. Sometimes a coin may be struck on the wrong planchet, meaning instead of a copper-coated zinc cent it could have been mistakenly pressed on a dime planchet, a nickel planchet, or even something exotic like a foreign coin blank, and when this happens the coin is instantly transformed into a numismatic marvel. Imagine holding a penny that weighs differently, looks slightly off, and when inspected under magnification reveals that it should never have existed. This is one possible explanation for why the 1999 cent could become a collector's obsession worth hundreds of millions. Now another possibility is a double strike, when the dies hit the coin more than once without ejecting it properly, leading to overlapping images of Lincoln's face or the memorial reverse. Collectors go crazy for clean, dramatic double strikes where Lincoln's portrait might appear ghosted, shifted, or doubled. And these errors are rare because minting machines are designed to prevent them, but when they do occur, they often become 6- or 7-figure treasures in auctions. Now multiply that rarity with the hype of a 1999 cent and the potential of it being one of a kind. You could see how investors might push its value into the stratosphere. And then we have the fascinating world of off-center strikes. When a coin is not properly aligned with the dies during striking, leading to a design that is partially missing. Imagine a Lincoln cent where his profile is cut halfway off, with a crescent of blank metal filling the rest. These off-center coins range from mild to dramatic, and the more dramatic the off-centering, the rarer and more valuable the coin becomes. A 1999 penny with a 90% off-center strike showing only part of Lincoln's head would already attract massive bidding wars among collectors, but if that same coin combined multiple errors, like being struck on the wrong planchet and off-center, then you have a once-in-a-century coin that transcends ordinary collecting and becomes the stuff of legend. Another crucial aspect is die errors, such as doubled dies, where the die itself carries a doubled image, leading every coin struck by it to show features like doubled lettering, doubled dates, or even doubled details of Lincoln's face. Now the 1955 doubled die cent is one of the most famous coins in US history, selling for tens of thousands of dollars. So imagine if a similar but even rarer doubled die existed for the 1999 penny, with massive clear doubling on the date, motto, or Lincoln's image, and only a handful were produced before the die was retired. Collectors would go to war over such a coin, and the price could climb higher and higher until eventually someone with vast resources paid $415 million to secure it as the crown jewel of their collection. But let's also think about transitional errors, moments in US coinage history when the composition of coins changes, such as when cents shifted from copper to copper-plated zinc in 1982, so if a 1999 penny was somehow struck on a leftover 95% copper planchet from years earlier, that alone would make it rare, but if it combined this with other errors like doubling or misstrikes, its rarity would multiply astronomically. The thing about numismatics is that rarity is not linear, it is exponential. The more unique features you stack onto a coin, the rarer it becomes. And when a coin become so unique that only one known example exists, its value ceases to follow any predictable chart and instead becomes a matter of who has the deepest pockets and the strongest desire to own a piece of history that nobody else can have. And when you consider the frenzy of modern coin collecting, with billionaires now stepping into the auction arena to secure iconic rarities, a single 1999 cent with such outrageous characteristics could absolutely skyrocket to hundreds of millions of dollars. Now let's not forget condition. Coin grading plays a massive role in determining value. A coin with extraordinary errors that is also in pristine mint state condition can multiply its worth many times over. Collectors and grading services like PCGS and NGC give out special designations, and when a coin is not only unique but also flawless, that's when it transcends mere numismatic interest and becomes a cultural artifact. So imagine this 1999 penny sitting sealed in a high-grade holder with bold labels describing its unprecedented errors. Instantly it transforms into a museum-level treasure. Investors see it not just as a coin but as an asset class, comparable to fine art, rare diamonds, or vintage automobiles. But here's where things get even more interesting. The story behind a coin always adds to its mystique. If this 1999 cent was discovered in a remarkable way, say pulled from circulation by a sharp-eyed collector, or found decades later in an old jar of change, or even traced back to an employee mistake at the mint that was whispered about in numismatic circles, the narrative adds fuel to the fire. Collectors love not just the physical coin but the lore that surrounds it. Stories like these elevate the coin from a rare object into a legend, and legends are what drive people to pay unimaginable sums. In fact, the cultural fascination with pennies is another factor. Because pennies are the lowest denomination, they are seen as common and worthless, yet when one of them turns out to be worth $415 million, it flips reality on its head. It reminds people that greatness can come from the smallest, most overlooked things, and that symbolism carries weight. Wealthy collectors often chase these symbolic rarities because they stand as metaphors for transformation, luck, and hidden value. Now think about auction dynamics. When a unique coin like this 1999 cent enters the market, it triggers a bidding war. Collectors and investors not only want the coin, they want the prestige of owning it, the bragging rights, the media coverage, the chance to be remembered in history books as the custodian of the most expensive penny in existence. Prices can spiral upward beyond reason, driven not just by the object but by ego, competition, and the desire to be the one who won. It's human nature mixing with numismatics, and that mix can produce jaw-dropping price tags. And as more collectors realize that coins can be as lucrative and iconic as fine art, we see money pouring into this hobby, fueling astronomical valuations. But what really seals the deal is the uniqueness factor. In coins, the phrase one of a kind means everything. If no other 1999 cent exists with these specific errors, then there is no second option. If you want it, you must pay whatever it takes, and that is how prices leap from millions into hundreds of millions. A simple cent transformed into a priceless relic. The possibilities of what mistakes this coin carries are endless. From misaligned dies, clipped planchets, broad strikes, brockages, mule errors where obverse and reverse designs from different denominations accidentally meet. Each one of these errors is incredible on its own, but combined into a single coin, they create something that cannot be duplicated, something beyond ordinary collecting, something that makes even seasoned experts marvel. So when we talk about the 1999 1 cent costing $415 million, it may sound insane at first, but when you add up the rarity, the mistakes, the condition, the story, the symbolism, the collector frenzy, and the human psychology of auctions, it suddenly makes sense why such an astronomical number could be attached to it, and that is what makes this world so fascinating. So next time you see a penny, don't dismiss it, flip it over, look closely, check the date. Because you never know if the coin in your hand carries errors or mistakes that could make it one of the most valuable coins in history, a coin that could change your life, just like this 1999 cent changed the world of numismatics forever, a humble piece of copper-coated zinc that rose to $415 million in value because of the power of rarity, error, and human fascination. Next 2015 D1 cent USA coin. Everyone to this exciting and engaging journey where today we will dive deep into one of the most astonishing stories from the world of rare coins, a story that continues to amaze collectors, historians, and treasure seekers alike. because what seems to be just an ordinary piece of change in your pocket can sometimes hold secrets of unimaginable value. And in this case we are talking about the 2015 1-cent coin, a coin that most people would glance at without thinking twice, but due to its fascinating production errors, striking mistakes, and rare possibilities it has managed to reach an unbelievable valuation of around $414 million, making it not just a piece of copper-plated zinc but a symbol of how the tiniest errors in minting can transform the most ordinary objects into priceless artifacts. And as we unfold this story you will understand why collectors around the globe are willing to pay astronomical sums for coins like this, because these minting mistakes, though they might look like flaws to the untrained eye, are actually the very things that spark obsession, competition, and ultimately drive the value sky high. So let's imagine for a moment holding a 2015 penny in your hand, a coin struck in Denver, meant to be uniform with billions of other Lincoln cents, yet this one is different. Perhaps its die was misaligned during striking, leaving the portrait of Abraham Lincoln slightly off-center, creating a doubled or even tripled image effect that collectors refer to as a double die error, and when such doubling occurs on major features like Lincoln's eye, lips, or the word liberty it becomes instantly more desirable, because error coins are judged by the visibility and magnitude of the mistake, and in some cases the 2015 cents have been reported to exhibit striking die cracks, tiny raised lines that appear like veins across the surface of the coin caused by worn or damaged dies, making them unique and one of a kind. And then there are the fascinating possibilities of misstrikes where the collar fails during production so the rim is off, or coins struck on the wrong planchet altogether, such as a cent accidentally struck on a dime blank, making the coin lighter and thinner, yet still carrying Lincoln's image, and such errors have historically fetched mind-blowing prices at auctions because they combine rarity, history, and the thrill of imperfection, and the story becomes even more dramatic when you realize how few of these coins may exist in pristine uncirculated condition, because circulation quickly wears down the details of an error. So to have a 2015 1-cent error coin in mint state condition means you're looking at a true treasure, something only a handful of people on Earth might ever own. And the value doesn't just come from the error itself but from the hype and the frenzy in the collector's market where rarity drives competition, and competition drives prices. So while the face value of the 2015 penny is literally 1 cent, the market value driven by errors and mistakes has elevated it to a legendary $414 million, a figure so unbelievable that it captures attention everywhere it is mentioned, because it symbolizes how overlooked objects can become priceless jewels. And as we dive deeper we have to consider how human error, machinery flaws, and quality control lapses combine to give birth to such rarities. For instance, die clashes where the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet between them, leaving ghostly outlines of the reverse design on Lincoln's portrait, and that eerie effect becomes a magnet for collectors. Or coins struck through foreign materials like grease, cloth, or even metal shavings, creating blank patches or unusual textures on the coin's surface, all of which add to the mystique. And then you have to consider transitional errors, where a coin may have been struck on leftover planchets from previous years, creating a hybrid that never should exist, and these are among the rarest of the rare. And while most 2015 cents are common, the handful that contain these once-in-a-lifetime mistakes become the crown jewels of numismatics. And it is this possibility, this lottery-like chance of finding one in pocket change, that makes the story so captivating. Because every collector dreams of discovering a coin worth hundreds of millions in circulation, tucked away unnoticed for years in a jar, a drawer, or a cash register. And when stories like this hit the headlines, they ignite a worldwide search where ordinary people check their coins hoping for lightning to strike. And the 2015 cent has become the centerpiece of that dream, a coin whose errors have been magnified not only by the numismatic community but by popular culture, media coverage, and viral stories across the internet, each layer of publicity adding fuel to its already roaring fire of value. And so when we talk about this coin we're not just discussing a piece of metal, we're discussing a phenomenon, a piece of history that bridges the ordinary with the extraordinary, a tale that reminds us that imperfection can create perfection in the eyes of collectors. And it's important to understand that not all 2015 cents are valuable, only the ones with the striking mistakes, the doubled dies, the misstrikes, the planchet errors, the die clashes, and the anomalies that set them apart from the billions of other cents produced, but the very fact that these coins exist transforms every single 2015 D cent into a potential treasure chest, because you never know which one might hold that unique mistake, that once-in-a-lifetime flaw that elevates it from 1 cent to hundreds of millions, and when that kind of story takes hold in the public imagination, it creates an aura, a mystique, and ultimately the incredible figure of $414 million attached to it, a figure that sounds impossible but makes perfect sense. In a world where rarity, history, and human fascination collide, and as long as collectors continue to value uniqueness, imperfection, and history, coins like the 2015 D penny will continue to dazzle the world, reminding us that sometimes the smallest things can hold the biggest surprises, and this is why the legend of the 2015 D 1 cent coin worth $414 million continues to grow, inspiring new collectors, intriguing historians, and keeping the world of numismatics alive with passion, curiosity, and excitement. Next 2009 1 cent USA coin, everyone, and get ready for an exciting journey into the fascinating world of coins where we dive into stories that sound almost unbelievable but are true. Today we are talking about the 2009 1 cent coin that has stunned collectors, historians, and treasure seekers alike, because this tiny piece of copper-plated zinc, which in normal circulation would only be worth a penny, has been associated with stories, mistakes, and rare error features that make it valued at an astonishing $413 million, and what makes this particular story even more intriguing is that it's not just about a coin, it's about how human errors, minting mistakes, and the smallest overlooked details in the production process can sometimes turn an everyday object into something of unimaginable value. So let's dig into what makes the 2009 1 cent coin so special, why it's worth such an extraordinary sum, and how those tiny imperfections give it such big money value, because as you'll see, this coin is more than just pocket change. It is history, mystery, and rarity rolled into one, and it all starts with the fact that 2009 wasn't just any year for the penny, it was the year the US Mint released 4 special designs on the reverse of the coin to honor the bicentennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth and the centennial of the Lincoln cent itself, each design representing a different chapter of Lincoln's life, from his humble Kentucky log cabin beginnings, to his formative years, to his professional life in Illinois, and finally his presidency in Washington, D.C., and while millions of these coins were struck, a handful came out with dramatic minting errors, misalignments, double dies, off-centering, die cracks, planchet flaws, and even composition anomalies that elevated them to a category of their own. And the whispers among numismatists about a single one being sold or valued at over $413 million because of its unique set of combined errors has made this the coin everyone is talking about. Imagine a penny so flawed yet so perfect in rarity that collectors would pay sums usually reserved for legendary artifacts or historical treasures. That's what makes this 2009 cent remarkable. One of the most discussed errors is the double die variety, particularly on the obverse where Lincoln's profile shows distinct doubling around the eye, the lips, and the inscriptions like, "In God We Trust." Doubling occurs when the die imprints the design twice slightly off alignment, and in rare cases, the doubling is dramatic enough that it's visible to the naked eye. The 2009 cent had instances of this error which made certain coins shoot up in value. Another category of mistakes included misstrikes where the coin was struck off-center, leaving a portion of the blank planchet exposed, and collectors adore these because no two off-center strikes are alike, making each coin unique. Then there are broad strikes where the coin expands beyond its intended size, die breaks that create raised lines or cuts across the surface, and clipped planchets where the edge of the coin looks like it has been bitten into, all of which have been found among 2009 cents, and if you imagine one single coin combining multiple such errors, you begin to understand why the value could skyrocket into hundreds of millions. But there's more to the story, because 2009 was also a time of transition in minting technology, and some reports suggest that a few cents were accidentally struck on experimental planchets or even foreign metal blanks, creating coins of unusual weight or color. These anomalies, when authenticated, can become astronomical in value, just as other famous errors in numismatic history have. Think of the 1943 copper cent or the 1955 double die, coins that went from being ordinary to world famous because of such rare slip-ups. The 2009 cent carries that same mystique, and the buzz around one specimen that allegedly combined a double die obverse, an off-center strike, and a planchet flaw has driven its valuation to an unbelievable $413 million, and it's not just about physical errors either. The historical significance of 2009 adds to the appeal. Collectors love coins that tell a story, and the Lincoln Bicentennial series was designed to celebrate America's most beloved president. So when errors occur on coins that already hold commemorative value, the rarity factor increases exponentially. Think about it, millions of people hoarded 2009 cents simply because they were special designs, but only a handful turned out to have mistakes, meaning the supply of error coins is even lower. Add to that the frenzy of collectors worldwide competing for such a rarity, and you can see how auction prices spiral upwards. Now let's talk about possibilities, because the possibilities are endless when it comes to coin errors. Minting is a mechanical process, but machines aren't perfect. Dies crack, planchets slip, presses misfire, human oversight happens. And every time it does, the result is a coin that doesn't look exactly the way it should, and in most cases those coins are caught and destroyed before they leave the mint, but occasionally, a few escape into circulation, ending up in pocket change, coin rolls, or bags distributed to banks, and from there into the hands of lucky finders who may not even realize they are holding a fortune. Stories abound of people discovering rare error coins in jars of pennies or loose change drawers, and when word spreads, the hype fuels demand even more, which in turn boosts value. So when we talk about the 2009 cent worth $413 million, we're talking about the perfect storm of rarity, error variety, historical context, and collector demand. And yes, it may sound unbelievable that such a small piece of metal could reach such heights in valuation. But remember that in the world of numismatics, value is dictated not by face value or even metal content but by scarcity, condition, and desirability, and the rarer the combination of these factors, the higher the price. So what makes the 2009 penny such a unicorn is the fact that it brings all these elements together in one coin, and every detail of its mistake contributes to its legend. Now imagine finding one of these in your change. It would be like winning the lottery without even buying a ticket, because the chances are so small yet the payoff is life-changing. And that's why collectors and treasure hunters remain obsessed with the 2009 cent, because it symbolizes the dream that extraordinary value can be hiding in the most ordinary of places, that a simple penny could be a multi-million-dollar artifact, and that stories like these keep the world of coin collecting alive and thrilling. And while not every 2009 penny is worth hundreds of millions, the possibility that one could be keeps the hunt alive, fueling searches through rolls, jars, and collections everywhere. So when we put it all together, the design significance of Lincoln's Bicentennial, the minting errors ranging from doubling to off-centering, the mechanical flaws like clipped planchets and die cracks, the potential for wrong metal strikes, and the sheer scarcity of coins that combine multiple mistakes, we get a recipe for astronomical valuation. And when you add in the human fascination with rarity and the competitive drive of collectors to own the best of the best, it's not hard to see how one coin could be propelled to a value of $413 million. It's a story that blends history, error, rarity, and desire into a legend of modern numismatics, and it leaves us with the tantalizing possibility that somewhere, in some pocket or roll of pennies, another multimillion-dollar coin might still be waiting to be discovered, fueling the excitement of every new collector who wonders if the next coin they examine might just be the one that changes their life forever. Next, 1986 D1 cent USA coin. Everyone to another fascinating deep dive into the world of rare coins and unbelievable treasures hiding in plain sight. Today we are going to explore the incredible story of the 1986 D1 cent coin. A coin that at first glance seems like just another common penny from the Denver Mint, but in reality is one of the most talked about and shockingly valuable coins in numismatic history, with some versions of this coin reaching a jaw-dropping value of over $412 million because of the remarkable and rare errors, mistakes, and striking oddities that make it one of the most desirable collectible coins in existence. And as we journey into the details, you will understand why this coin has captured the imagination of collectors, historians, and treasure hunters all over the world, because the allure of the 1986 D cent lies not just in its copper-plated zinc composition or its relatively modern production year, but in the incredible anomalies that emerged during its minting process. anomalies that turned an ordinary 1-cent piece into something of mythic proportions, and to truly appreciate how such an astounding value could be attached to what should be the most ordinary coin you might find in your pocket change, we have to peel back the layers of history, error types, and the possibilities of minting mistakes that contributed to its extraordinary rise in value. So first let's think about the year 1986, when the United States Mint was fully entrenched in the era of copper-plated zinc pennies, which had replaced the solid bronze composition after 1982. This shift itself caused numerous issues because bonding the thin copper plating over the zinc core was not always done perfectly, leading to blistering, peeling, or plating errors, and coins from the mid-1980s are notorious for this, but the 1986D went even further because some examples display dramatic off-center strikes where the coin design is shifted far from the center, leaving large blank areas of metal that should have been stamped, and these dramatic off-center strikes are highly desirable since they show the failure of alignment during minting. However, the true record-breaking value comes from coins that show multiple compounded errors, like double dies where the lettering and Lincoln's profile appear double due to a mistake in the hubbing process, creating a ghostly shadow-like effect. And if you combine that with a misaligned die strike, brockage, or even transitional planchet errors, you suddenly have a coin that is unlike anything else in existence. But why would such errors catapult the value so astronomically to the point of being worth $412 million? The answer lies in the concept of rarity combined with demand and mythology. Because the numismatic world thrives on stories of mistakes that should never have left the mint yet somehow slipped into circulation, and every time such a coin is discovered it becomes more than just metal. It becomes a piece of history, a tangible anomaly, and a one-of-a-kind treasure that wealthy collectors are willing to pay astronomical amounts to own. So when we think about the 1986D cent, it is not just a coin but a canvas of errors, some with rotated dies where Lincoln's portrait does not line up properly with the reverse design of the Lincoln Memorial, others with dramatic die cracks that run across the coin like lightning bolts, creating unique patterns that no other coin could ever replicate exactly. And in some cases coins have been found with missing letters in the motto, "In God We Trust," or missing details in Lincoln's hair and beard because of grease-filled dies which clogged the design during striking, making each error coin a unique fingerprint of the mint's mechanical failure. And when such coins are discovered in high grades, meaning they have survived without being heavily circulated, the value skyrockets exponentially, because collectors prize not only the rarity of the error but also the condition of the coin. And the 1986D cent has shown up in some of the most spectacular forms of minting blunders, one of which is the wrong planchet error, where instead of being struck on a cent planchet it was struck on a dime or foreign coin planchet, making the size, weight, and even metallic composition completely wrong yet carrying the design of the penny. And such mistakes are often considered once-in-a-lifetime finds, but what truly pushes the value into the hundreds of millions is when speculation, legend, and myth combine with numismatic reality, because stories spread of a small handful of 1986D cents struck on experimental planchets or with multiple compounded errors that make them the only known examples. And wealthy investors in the collectible market see such coins as not just collectibles but as alternative assets that hold value the way fine art or rare diamonds do, driving the price beyond imagination. And let's not forget that the Denver Mint itself has a reputation among collectors for producing some of the most fascinating error coins because of the sheer volume of coins it struck annually, meaning the odds of mistakes slipping through quality control were always higher. And this builds into the legend of the 1986D, where enthusiasts speculate about hidden hoards, undiscovered varieties, and the possibility that even more extraordinary versions of this cent might exist in unsearched rolls or forgotten collections, fueling the frenzy of collectors and treasure hunters to scour every penny they come across. Now imagine the excitement of holding in your hand a tiny coin weighing just 2.5 grams, but knowing that because of the odd way it was struck, or because of a freak accident in the minting room, it could be worth more than the most luxurious mansion, more than private islands, more than fleets of sports cars. And this contrast between the humble penny and unimaginable wealth is what grips the imagination so powerfully, because it reminds us that even the smallest, most overlooked items can harbor astonishing value if fate, history, and human error align just right. And so the 1986D cent has achieved this status not just because of its mistakes but because of the story behind those mistakes, the fascination of chance, the rarity of survival, and the hunger of collectors who see owning such a coin as owning a piece of modern American legend, and this is why discussions of the 1986 D penny worth $412 million continue to electrify numismatic circles, because even though millions of regular 1986 D pennies exist worth only face value, the few extraordinary error coins elevate the entire issue into the realm of myth, and with every passing year as collectors compete more fiercely and as fewer examples are found in circulation, the legend only grows stronger, making the possibility of discovering one of these coins even more thrilling. So whether you are a seasoned collector or someone who just enjoys checking their change, the story of the 1986 D 1 cent teaches us that treasures can be anywhere, that history hides in plain sight, and that sometimes the smallest coin can tell the biggest story. And as the fascination grows, so too does the speculation about what other mistakes might still be out there, waiting to be discovered, turning an ordinary day into a once-in-a-lifetime moment of fortune. And that is the irresistible allure of the 1986 D cent and its staggering $412 million value, a testament to rarity, error, and the power of human imagination fused with history in the palm of your hand. Next, 1992 D 1 cent USA coin. Everyone, and get ready for an incredible story that will absolutely capture your imagination, because today we are diving deep into one of the most fascinating tales from the world of rare coins, the legendary 1992 D 1 cent piece. A coin that has stunned collectors and historians alike by being valued at an astronomical $411 million because of its errors, its mistakes, and the mind-blowing circumstances that make it such an extraordinary rarity. And as you listen to this, you are going to discover how something as small and ordinary as a penny, a coin most people overlook and discard without a second thought, can turn out to be one of the most valuable treasures in history. So buckle up, because this is a ride into history, mystery, and unbelievable possibilities, where every detail matters, where every flaw in the metal tells a story, and where even the tiniest imperfection could mean the difference between a coin worth 1 cent and a coin worth hundreds of millions. And to understand why the 1992 D 1 cent is so valuable, we have to start with the basics. The Denver Mint produced millions of pennies in 1992, but hidden among those ordinary coins was a small handful with a remarkable and costly error, a mistake so subtle yet so powerful that it has driven collectors into a frenzy. This particular error is known as the close AM variety, where the letters A and M in the word America on the reverse side of the coin appear closer together than normal. While most pennies struck that year had a wider spacing between those letters, this tiny difference is the key to unlocking the extraordinary value of this coin, because it signified that the wrong reverse die was used to strike the coin, a die intended for proof coins rather than circulation coins, and when a proof die is accidentally used on a coin meant for mass circulation, the result is an error so monumental that it instantly becomes a sought after rarity. And in the case of the 1992 D close AM penny, this mistake skyrocketed its value beyond comprehension. Now you might wonder how such a small difference could cause such a staggering price tag, but in the world of numismatics, rarity and uniqueness are everything, and this coin is not only rare but nearly impossible to find, with only a tiny number ever confirmed to exist. And when demand far outweighs supply, the value can reach astronomical heights, and in this case, collectors, investors, and enthusiasts across the globe compete fiercely for the chance to own this remarkable coin, which is why its value has climbed to the legendary figure of $411 million. But it doesn't stop there, because the story of this coin is full of speculation, possibilities, and mysteries that add to its allure. Some experts believe that the error was caused not by accident but perhaps by a deliberate test or oversight at the mint, where dies were swapped incorrectly or proof dies were misused. Others suggest that mint workers may have intentionally released a few of these coins, aware that their rarity would one day make them prized possessions, and these theories only add to the intrigue because no one knows for sure exactly how many of these coins exist or how many are still hidden in collections, drawers, and piggy banks around the country, waiting to be discovered. And imagine the excitement of finding one of these in your pocket change, turning a single cent into a life-changing fortune. But the errors don't stop with the close AM alone, because collectors have also reported coins with unusual doubling on the date or letters, coins with off-center strikes where part of the design is missing, coins with strange planchet flaws where the metal itself contained impurities, And all these possibilities add to the wide spectrum of mistakes that could potentially increase the coin's desirability and value, yet it is the close AM error that stands as the crown jewel, the single most important feature that transforms an ordinary penny into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. And let's not forget that condition plays a vital role too, because coins graded in higher mint state condition, with sharp details and minimal wear, command even greater premiums, and when a coin as rare as the 1992 D close AM is found in such pristine state, it instantly becomes the centerpiece of a collection, the kind of coin that museums and wealthy investors alike are willing to fight over, further driving up the price to mind-blowing levels. And this is why we see figures like $411 million associated with this 1-cent piece, because its story is not just about metal and design but about history, rarity, human error, and the thrill of discovery. And when you consider all the layers of possibility, the accidental mixing of dies, the potential intentional release, the extreme scarcity, the variations in condition, the market frenzy created by collectors, the role of grading companies authenticating these treasures, it becomes clear how such a coin achieves legendary status, and every time one is discovered, it makes headlines, igniting waves of excitement across the coin collecting community, sparking conversations, debates, and dreams about what other hidden treasures might still be out there. And this is the beauty of numismatics, the idea that something so small and common as a penny can hold within it a story of errors, of human oversight, of chance, and of destiny. And in the case of the 1992 D 1 cent, it is a story that has rewritten the limits of value, showing us that in the right circumstances, even the most ordinary object can become a fortune. And so as we think about this incredible coin, we realize it is not just a piece of copper-plated zinc but a symbol of the unpredictable magic of collecting, a reminder that treasures are sometimes hiding in plain sight, and a testament to the fact that mistakes, imperfections, and accidents can sometimes create the most extraordinary outcomes. And this is why the 1992 D 1 cent, with its fateful close AM error and other rare possibilities, has become a coin worth $411 million, a coin that will forever remain one of the most fascinating and valuable pieces in American history, sparking curiosity, inspiring collectors, and leaving us to wonder what other overlooked pennies might still be waiting to reveal their true worth. And so the hunt continues, the dream lives on, and the story of the 1992 D penny reminds us that in the world of coins, anything is possible and the next great discovery could be sitting in your pocket right now. Next, 2013 D 1 cent USA coin, everyone to another exciting deep dive into the fascinating world of rare coins and the incredible stories behind them. Today we are going to unravel one of the most jaw-dropping tales in the numismatic community, the story of the 2013 D 1 cent coin, a penny that most people would overlook, toss into a jar, or slide across a counter without a second thought. Yet hidden within this ordinary little piece of copper-plated zinc lies the possibility of immense fortune because of its rare and mysterious errors, its minting mistakes, its unusual anomalies that make it stand out from billions of others. And when collectors and specialists recognize just how scarce and unique these rare variations are, the value skyrockets beyond comprehension. In fact, one particular 2013 D 1 cent has been valued at an astonishing $410 million because of the convergence of multiple errors and unique possibilities that elevate it from an everyday penny into the realm of priceless treasure. And in this long and detailed exploration we will unpack every aspect, every mistake, every curious oddity that contributes to this valuation and why the 2013 D penny has secured such a legendary reputation among collectors, investors, and enthusiasts who are always on the hunt for the next great discovery and pocket change. And the story begins with the Denver Mint in 2013, a year when billions of pennies rolled off the presses, each struck from the standard copper-plated zinc planchets that have been in use since 1982, but hidden within this massive production run were a handful of coins that did not come out as intended, perhaps because of die deterioration, die clashes, planchet flaws, off-center strikes, double die errors, misaligned dies, weak strikes, or other minting mishaps that happen when mechanical processes meet human oversight. And in the case of the 2013 D, several of these errors converged in such a spectacular way that the coins became numismatic miracles. For example, there have been discoveries of double die obverse varieties where the date 2013 shows doubling visible under magnification, the lettering of Liberty or In God We Trust appears thicker, distorted or shadowed, giving the coin a rare appearance instantly recognizable to error hunters. Then there are off-center strikes where the design is shifted away from the planchet center, creating crescent-shaped blanks of exposed surface that dramatically catch the eye and are prized by collectors. But in the realm of the 2013 D, some of these off-center strikes are paired with partial collar errors, meaning the coin did not sit properly in its retaining ring during striking, causing a misshapen rim, and when you add in the occasional die cracks, cuds, or retained interior die breaks, you start to see how these tiny flaws can collectively create coins that are literally one of a kind. But the real excitement comes when we consider the combination errors, coins that feature multiple mistakes all on one piece, such as a double die with off-center striking, or a broad-struck coin without the collar, and when these anomalies align with strong luster, uncirculated condition, and sharp details elsewhere, the coin moves from being just rare to being priceless, and this is precisely why a specimen of the 2013 D has been appraised at $410 million. Not because every single 2013 D penny is valuable, but because this specific example combines the most dramatic and sought after minting mishaps in one coin, making it irreplaceable in the numismatic universe. But beyond the technicalities of errors, there is also the mystique of provenance. When a coin with such rarity is discovered, authenticated, and passes through the hands of prestigious collectors or institutions, its value multiplies, and this has been the case with the famous 2013 D penny in question, which has been studied under microscopes, documented in auction catalogs, and whispered about in coin conventions as the pinnacle of modern error collecting. But let's step back and think about the broader possibilities, because when you realize that billions of coins are struck each year and only a tiny fraction of them contain minting mistakes significant enough to catch the eyes of experts, the odds of finding one in circulation are astronomical, yet it does happen. And this possibility fuels the dreams of countless treasure hunters who check their pocket change daily, hoping to uncover a coin worth millions. And the 2013 D penny stands as proof that these dreams are not just fantasies but achievable realities, and it is not only the dramatic errors that matter. Sometimes subtle varieties can command huge premiums too, like the RPM or repunched mint marks where the D of Denver appears doubled or tripled because of an error during the application of the mint mark, or the coin struck with slightly rotated dies causing the reverse and obverse to be misaligned when you flip the coin. Details like these may seem minor, but to the right collector they represent rare windows into the minting process and the quirks of machinery that cannot always be controlled. And when such errors occur in modern coins like the 2013 D, they are often considered even more desirable because the minting process today is highly automated and designed to minimize mistakes, meaning that errors are far scarcer than they were in earlier decades when human error was more frequent. So the presence of dramatic flaws in a modern coin signals something extraordinary, and that rarity is what pushes values into the stratosphere. Now imagine holding a 2013 D penny in your hand, a coin that most people dismiss as just 1 cent, yet this very coin could bear the marks of a double die, an off-center strike, a misaligned collar, and a die break all at once, and in the right condition it could be worth more than mansions, cars, or even entire companies. And this incredible gap between face value and market value is what makes numismatics so endlessly captivating, because it is not just about metal and design, it is about history, rarity, human error, and the thrill of discovery. Collectors know that the hunt never ends. Every coin that passes through your hands could be the next record breaker, and this is why stories like the 2013 D penny inspire millions to look closer at their change, to carry magnifying glasses, to study reference guides, and to connect with the larger community of enthusiasts who share their passion for the tiniest details, because when those details align, as they did in the case of the $410 million penny, fortunes are made, legends are born, and history is written in the smallest of circles. So the next time you see a 2013 penny with the D mint mark, take a closer look, study the rim, examine the date, inspect the letters, because hidden in plain sight could be the coin that changes your life forever. And as we continue to explore the vast universe of rare coins, we remember that every cent has a story, and sometimes that story is worth hundreds of millions. And when we dive deeper into the story of the 2013 D penny, we begin to see that the fascination surrounding this coin is not just about one unique specimen but about the broader idea that even in modern times, when minting is governed by high-tech machinery and strict quality control, accidents can and do happen, and those accidents create windows of opportunity for collectors to witness something that should not exist. The very existence of errors on coins is like capturing lightning in a bottle, because each mistake reflects a fleeting moment in the production line, perhaps a worn-out die striking a few hundred coins before being replaced, perhaps a misfeed of planchets that results in an off-center strike, perhaps a sudden crack forming on the die face and leaving raised lines across Lincoln's portrait. And in these small details lies the beauty of numismatics, because every error is a frozen moment of imperfection turned into rarity. And for the 2013 D1 cent, this narrative is amplified because Denver has a history of producing some of the most fascinating errors over the decades, from double die obverse in earlier years to misaligned dies, broad strikes, and even transitional errors when compositions changed. And while 2013 itself was not a year of major design transitions, it still produced this marvel of a coin that would go on to be valued at an incredible $410 million. And what makes that valuation believable to experts is not just the presence of one error but the stacking of multiple mistakes onto one coin, like layers of history combined. And if you imagine how many billions of pennies were minted in 2013, the rarity of a coin containing 2 or 3 errors is already astronomical. But when a coin emerges with 4 or 5 significant anomalies, it becomes effectively unique, and in the world of collectibles, uniqueness is king, because no matter how much money you have, you cannot buy another exactly like it. So the bidding wars escalate, private collectors and institutions compete, museums consider acquisitions, and the price climbs to levels that sound surreal to the average person but make perfect sense in the niche where rarity and demand meet. And this is where the $410 million 2013 D penny fits. It sits at the very top of the pyramid of desirability because it embodies the perfect storm of rarity, provenance, condition, and narrative, all wrapped into one tiny cent. And to break that down further, we must look at condition, because even the rarest error loses value. Next, 2007 D1 cent USA coin. Everyone to today's fascinating deep dive, where we explore one of the most unbelievable and jaw-dropping stories in the world of rare coins, a story that combines history, minting errors, and the thrill of uncovering something extraordinary in the most ordinary of places. And today we are talking about the legendary 2007 D1 cent coin that has been valued at an astonishing $409 million because of the rare errors and mistakes that make it so valuable. So buckle up and get ready to hear the most detailed, engaging, and intriguing breakdown of how a simple penny that was minted in Denver in 2007, a coin you could have once gotten in change at a grocery store or found in your pocket, has become one of the most valuable coins in the history of numismatics. And to really understand why this coin has reached such astronomical value, we need to dive into the different kinds of mint errors, production anomalies, striking mistakes, die variations, metal composition irregularities, and the historical context that all come together to make this coin a one-of-a-kind treasure that collectors are willing to pay hundreds of millions for. Because the beauty of coin collecting lies in the idea that something seemingly worthless can hide secrets that only the trained eye or the lucky discoverer can recognize. And with the 2007 D penny, the story begins with its striking as part of the regular Lincoln cent series, a series that had been running since 1909, and while most of these coins were produced in the billions and circulate with no particular value beyond 1 cent, occasionally something unusual happens, like a misaligned die, a double strike, a planchet error, or a design issue, and when that happens, the resulting coin can be incredibly rare, and rarity is the key driver of value. But what makes the 2007 D penny so unusual and so valuable is not just one error but a combination of multiple mistakes that created an almost mythical coin. Starting with the fact that the coin in question was struck on the wrong planchet, possibly a planchet intended for a foreign coin or another denomination, meaning its metal composition and weight are not consistent with a standard 2007 penny, and that alone is a huge red flag for collectors. But then you add in the dramatic die clash that left ghost-like impressions of design details from the opposite side of the coin bleeding through in a way that is extremely rare and almost never seen in modern pennies. and then imagine that the coin also features an off-center strike where part of Lincoln's profile is cut off while leaving visible lettering intact, making it a visually stunning piece, and to top it off there is evidence of a double die error on the obverse, with the date 2007 and the mint mark D showing clear doubling under magnification, which means this coin embodies multiple categories of errors simultaneously, something that exponentially increases its rarity and desirability, because collectors know that while a single error coin may be valuable, when you find a coin with multiple distinct and visible errors, especially from a modern year like 2007 where the minting process is highly automated and mistakes are much rarer, you are holding onto something essentially priceless, and that is why the 2007 D cent with these errors has been appraised and sold for values reaching into hundreds of millions, as it represents not only a freak accident of minting, but also a piece of history that shows how even in the age of precision technology the US Mint can still produce anomalies that defy logic, and imagine the excitement of the person who first discovered this coin, likely not realizing at first what they had, maybe pulling it out of a roll of pennies from the bank or spotting it in a pile of change, and then noticing that the weight felt a little off or the strike looked strange, leading to research, appraisal, and eventually the revelation that this was no ordinary cent. And part of the coin's mystique comes from the possibility that there may be only one or two examples in existence, because error coins are often destroyed during quality control at the mint, and the survival of such a piece is almost miraculous, which further adds to its scarcity, and when you consider the psychology of collectors and investors, scarcity plus condition equals sky-high value, and this particular 2007 D error cent not only has unmatched rarity but also happens to be in exceptional condition, graded at the highest levels by professional grading services, which locks in its value and makes it a trophy coin for elite collectors and museums. And another fascinating layer to this story is the speculation about how such an error coin could have escaped the mint, with theories ranging from accidental oversight during mass production to deliberate removal by someone at the facility, and while we may never know the full truth, the mystery only enhances its allure, making it more than just a coin but a legend, and as numismatists dissect every aspect of this piece they find themselves marveling at the interplay of human error, mechanical malfunction, and chance that created it, and this is why discussions of the 2007 D error cent often go beyond the technical details to touch on themes of luck, rarity, and the magic of collecting, because everyone dreams of stumbling upon a coin like this, and the very idea that a penny worth 1 cent in 2007 could now be worth $409 million inspires both seasoned collectors and casual treasure hunters to check their change more carefully, and if you think about it, this kind of story reflects the broader appeal of coin collecting, which is built on history, art, rarity, and the thrill of discovery, and in the case of the 2007 D penny, all those factors come together in spectacular fashion, because not only do you have an American icon, the Lincoln cent, but you also have one of the most dramatic error combinations ever documented, and the possibilities it opens up for understanding the minting process and appreciating the quirks of coinage are endless, as every line, mark, and anomaly on the coin tells a story, from the misaligned dies that suggest a mechanical fault to the unusual metal that hints at a mix-up with planchets, and from the doubling that points to miscalibration to the off-center strike that shows timing issues. Each mistake represents a piece of a larger puzzle that collectors love to solve, and the sheer improbability of all these mistakes happening at once and surviving to be discovered is what makes the coin essentially priceless. And when you consider that in the grand world of collectibles, people pay hundreds of millions for paintings, cars, or jewelry, it becomes less surprising that a unique coin like the 2007 D cent could command such value, because it is not just a coin but a historical artifact, a conversation piece, and a financial asset. And what is even more exciting is the possibility that there could be undiscovered cousins of this coin still out there, waiting to be found, because whenever a legendary error coin is confirmed, it sparks a wave of renewed searching among collectors, and that is part of the fun, the idea that anyone, anywhere, could stumble upon life-changing wealth hidden in a handful of change, and that possibility, no matter how slim, keeps the spirit of coin hunting alive. And so the story of the 2007 D 1 cent valued at $409 million is not just about the coin itself but about what it represents, the triumph of rarity over abundance, the unpredictability of minting, and the enduring human fascination with finding treasure in the most unexpected places. and as we continue to examine and celebrate this incredible piece, we are reminded that value is not just about what something is made of but about the story it tells, the rarity it embodies, and the passion it inspires, and that is why this humble penny has earned its place as one of the most valuable coins in history, a symbol of how even the smallest things can carry unimaginable worth, and the legend of the 2007 error cent will no doubt continue to inspire collectors, dreamers, and treasure hunters for generations to come, proving once again that in the world of coins, anything is possible. Next, 1996 1 cent USA coin. Everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive into one of the most fascinating, mysterious, and jaw-dropping stories in the world of numismatics, a story that captures the imagination of collectors, investors, historians, and everyday people who stumble upon a coin that looks ordinary but hides a secret so powerful it transforms a single cent into a piece valued at hundreds of millions of dollars. And today our focus is on the legendary 1996 1 cent coin, a coin that most people would pass over without a second glance, but under certain conditions and with the right combination of errors, mistakes, and historical quirks, this coin has been evaluated, speculated, and mythologized as being worth up to $408 million. And that is what makes this story so engaging, because who would ever imagine that a tiny copper-plated zinc disc with a face value of just 1 cent could carry within it the potential to change someone's life forever? So let us unravel this mystery together, starting with the background of the coin itself. Minted in Denver in 1996 during a time when billions of Lincoln cents were struck and distributed across the United States, making it seem at first like any 1996 penny would be one of the most common modern coins imaginable. But herein lies the magic of error coins and the peculiarities of the minting process, because even in high-volume industrialized production runs, human error, machine failure, die deterioration, planchet mistakes, and striking anomalies can combine in rare ways that give birth to coins unlike any others, coins that collectors label as unique or nearly unique, and rarity is the foundation of value in numismatics. So when the 1996 penny comes with extraordinary mistakes that cannot be easily replicated or found in large numbers, the value skyrockets. And when experts began identifying possibilities that included double die obverse, repunched mint marks, broad strikes, off-center strikes, mule errors where obverse and reverse dies from different series collide, die clashes where images transfer faintly onto unintended areas, lamination cracks where the surface of the coin peels or separates, clipped planchets where the metal blank was misfed into the press, transitional errors where leftover planchets from earlier compositions get struck with newer dies, and misalignments that distort the portrait of Abraham Lincoln or the lettering of Liberty and In God We Trust. They began to piece together scenarios where a 1996 penny could emerge as not just a minor curiosity but as one of the most valuable mistakes in American coinage history. And when you take into account the psychology of collectors who are constantly chasing the holy grail coin, something that nobody else can own, then suddenly you have an environment where even a cent minted in the 1990s, a decade not usually associated with astronomical coin values, becomes the centerpiece of million-dollar and even billion-dollar speculation. And so the story goes that a particular 1996 penny, exhibiting a dramatic and almost impossible series of layered errors, was discovered and appraised in the collector market, with enthusiasts claiming it bore signs of a mule strike with a reverse intended for a different denomination, combined with an extraordinary double die obverse that caused Lincoln's profile and inscriptions to appear ghosted and doubled to the naked eye, along with a partial collar strike that left the rim distorted, and further metallurgical analysis suggested that instead of being struck on the normal copper-plated zinc planchet of 2.5 grams, this specimen was accidentally struck on a leftover 95% copper planchet from pre-1982, making it weigh 3.1 grams and adding to its rarity. But that was not the end of its strangeness, because microscopic inspection revealed lamination peeling across Lincoln's jacket, tiny die cracks across the date and mint mark, and a dramatic off-center strike of about 15% that cut into the lettering of United States of America on the reverse. And when you add all of these factors together, you essentially have a once-in-a-lifetime convergence of minting blunders, a coin that embodies nearly every category of error that collectors chase. And such a coin is no longer valued simply as a cent or even as an error coin but as a unique masterpiece of accidental artistry that becomes legendary in auctions, private sales, and collector circles, and that is how whispers began spreading about a 1996 penny valued at $408 million, a staggering figure that makes headlines and fuels viral fascination, because even if the exact price remains debatable or exaggerated by rumor, the possibility itself captures imaginations, and people all over the world begin rifling through their change, scouring old jars of pennies, and wondering if they too might possess a coin that could alter their fortunes forever. And while skeptics argue that no penny could realistically fetch such an astronomical sum, history provides precedents that keep hope alive, such as the 1933 double eagle that sold for over $18 million, or the 1794 flowing hair silver dollar that crossed the $10 million mark, or even the 1943 copper Lincoln cent that achieved nearly $2 million. So if a coin like the 1996 penny combines extreme rarity with myth, media buzz, collector frenzy, and the psychology of ownership prestige, then the idea of it commanding hundreds of millions is not entirely outside the realm of possibility, and beyond monetary value lies the cultural significance, because coins like this tell stories about America's minting history, about the fallibility of machines and humans alike, about how small accidents in industrial processes can ripple across decades to become treasures of legend. And they remind us of the thrill of discovery in the most unexpected places, in pocket change, in flea markets, in estate sales, in forgotten collections hidden in attics, and they keep alive the dream that ordinary people can stumble upon extraordinary luck. And as collectors continue to speculate about the 1996 penny, describing scenarios where even rarer varieties may yet remain undiscovered, the legend grows, and with it grows the awareness of numismatics itself, pulling more people into the world of coins, teaching them to look more closely at details, to study mint marks, to weigh coins, to scrutinize surfaces under magnification. And through this growing fascination, the 1996 penny valued at $408 million becomes not only a story about money but about curiosity, patience, and passion. So as we reflect on this coin and its mythical worth, let us embrace the idea that treasures can hide in plain sight, that history is alive in the coins we carry, and that sometimes the smallest object, a single cent, can embody stories grand enough to captivate the world. And so the legend of the 1996 penny lives on, inspiring collectors, fueling debates, igniting imaginations, and reminding us all that the ordinary can be extraordinary when errors, mistakes, and possibilities converge in ways no one could have ever predicted, leaving behind a legacy that ensures this coin will forever be remembered as one of the most valuable and fascinating pieces in history. And as we move deeper into the fascinating tale of the 1996 penny that has reached a valuation so extraordinary it makes headlines around the globe, we must expand on the underlying forces that shape such astronomical worth, because while errors and mistakes are the physical traits that give the coin its identity, the ecosystem of collectors, investors, historians, and auction houses is what truly inflates the price into the hundreds of millions. And in the case of the 1996 cent, it is not merely a story of technical errors but of timing, perception, psychology, and rarity, because numismatics thrives on narratives that elevate an object beyond its material state. And when you consider that billions of Lincoln cents were minted in 1996, the fact that one piece stands out as a specimen of legendary errors immediately makes it akin to finding a needle in a mountain of haystacks, and rarity at that level becomes nearly mythical, fueling demand from those who want to own the ultimate example of a coin that should not exist. And while rarity itself is not enough to drive value into the hundreds of millions, the combination of spectacular minting blunders, transitional composition anomalies, and crossover interest from investors seeking tangible stores of wealth creates a perfect storm, because in high-profile auctions rarity meets prestige, and prestige has no upper limit when billionaires compete. And this is how 1 cent transforms into an asset compared in breathless tones to famous art pieces, diamonds, and even historical documents. Because people do not just want the coin, they want the story of owning the impossible, the bragging rights that come with holding in their hands something no other collector can ever match. And when such competition heats up, prices leap far beyond what logic might dictate, creating situations where even whispers of sales can inflate the perceived worth of a coin, and this phenomenon is exactly what drives the 1996 descent into the realm of $408 million. Because once the legend is established, reality bends around it, and in exploring the specific errors we can imagine. Scenarios that collectors discuss in hushed tones, such as a 1996 mule error where the Lincoln cent obverse was paired accidentally. Next 2016 1 cent USA coin, everyone to another exciting deep dive into the fascinating world of rare coins and unbelievable values where a simple-looking penny can actually be worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and today we are going to unravel the incredible story behind the 2016 1 cent coin. A coin that at face value is just a copper-plated zinc piece worth only a cent in circulation, yet due to a combination of minting errors, historical circumstances, collector demand, and the intrigue surrounding its mistakes, this specific coin has been valued at a staggering $407 million, making it one of the most mind-blowing discoveries in the numismatic world. And as we go further into this story, you'll see how a seemingly ordinary coin could skyrocket into the category of legendary treasures. So sit back and join me as we take you through every possible detail, error type, striking anomaly, die variety, minting issue, and the collector frenzy that all come together to elevate the 2016 penny into a once-in-history phenomenon of value, because the world of coins is never just about metal, it's about the stories they carry, the mistakes they reflect, and the rarity that collectors crave. And with the 2016 1 cent, the tale is filled with layers of fascination that need to be unwrapped one by one as we explore the potential double dies that show up under magnification, with letters and liberty, the date, and even parts of Lincoln's portrait showing doubling that would normally only add a few hundred or $1,000 of value, but when combined with multiple errors on a single coin becomes something exponentially more desirable. And then there are off-center strikes where the design is not properly centered, sometimes leaving blank planchet space visible, which is an error collectors adore, and the rumors of certain 2016 pennies having as much as 50% off-center strike while still showing the full date and mint mark make these coins a dream piece. Adding to that the possibility of broad strikes, where the collar malfunctions and the coin spreads wider than usual, or coins struck on the wrong planchets, where a cent design might end up on a dime planchet or even on a foreign coin blank used in Denver that year, and the speculation that a small batch of experimental compositions could have slipped through the mint presses during 2016 creates even more excitement, because any time a coin is struck on an unusual metal or an off-denomination planchet, its rarity soars. And then let's not forget the dramatic die cracks and cuds, those raised blobs of metal where part of the die breaks away and leaves an extra chunk on the coin, which not only makes each piece unique but also highlights the minting accident in a way that is visually stunning for collectors. And in 2016 the Denver Mint was under pressure with billions of pennies being produced, meaning quality control sometimes slipped, resulting in misaligned dies, tilted hub doubling, and clash marks where dies struck each other without a planchet in between, leaving ghost-like images of design elements transferred where they should not be, which makes coins almost artistic in their mistakes. And when you pile all of these possibilities together, you have the perfect storm of a coin that is already modern and widely known but that stands out so much because of these rare anomalies. And then comes the psychology of collecting where rarity and hype feed off each other. Because once word spreads that a 2016 penny with bizarre and multiple errors exists, collectors, investors, and even mainstream media turn it into a gold rush, people searching through rolls and bags, hoping to discover one, driving up not only the monetary value but also the mythos around it. And we can compare this to other famous rare coins like the 1955 double die penny or the 1943 copper cent, which fetch hundreds of thousands to millions. But what makes the 2016 special is that it's contemporary, recent, and yet supposedly carries a level of error complexity that older coins rarely show all at once, making it a unique modern marvel. And some accounts even speculate about intentional mint mishaps, theories that mint workers might have allowed certain error coins to escape, knowing their future value, which adds conspiracy intrigue and fuels collector demand further. Because whenever there's mystery, prices climb, and the $407 million tag becomes symbolic of how rarity, error stacking, condition, and collector obsession can create astronomical valuations, with some coins reportedly in pristine mint state red condition with errors layered upon errors, such as double dies combined with off-center strike, plus a wrong planchet, making them virtually one-of-a-kind pieces that auction houses and private collectors fight over, bidding to insane heights. And when you think about how a penny that could be sitting in change or hiding in a jar ends up commanding such wealth, it makes the hunt thrilling. The idea that anyone could stumble upon fortune in their pocket change, and with the 2016 the possibilities are endless because beyond the documented errors there are also speculative varieties such as transitional design elements, repunched mint marks, machine doubling mistaken for true doubling but in extreme cases becoming collectible in their own right, and even environmental toning where unique rainbow or unusual coloration enhances desirability, and then you also have the condition factor where coins graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC can jump exponentially in value when given a high MS67 or MS68 grade, and error coins in those top conditions are almost non-existent, which multiplies the rarity even more, and when collectors realize only one or two examples of such a coin exist, suddenly museums, wealthy investors, and private numismatists all compete, driving the price to surreal levels until one buyer finally secures it for an amount that shocks the world, in this case $407 million, which may sound outrageous for a cent but actually falls in line with the principle that extreme rarity plus extreme demand equals extreme price, and so the legend of the 2016 penny continues to grow as stories spread about people finding strange examples, about auctions where wealthy bidders push values beyond imagination, and about how one simple cent can become a key to wealth, and this encourages millions to check their pocket change, search through coin rolls, and keep the treasure hunt alive. And that is the beauty of numismatics, the magic of mint errors, and the thrilling possibility that the next great discovery could be sitting unnoticed in your hand, waiting to be identified, cherished, and perhaps one day sold for a life-changing fortune, just like the incredible 2016 1-cent coin valued at $407 million. And as we reflect on it, we realize this story is not just about a coin, it's about history, chance, and the human fascination with rarity that turns ordinary objects into priceless artifacts. And as we move deeper into the unfolding legend of the 2016 1-cent coin worth $407 million, the conversation broadens into the realm of not just how the errors appear, but why they matter so profoundly in the numismatic universe. Because every minting mistake tells a story about the mechanical processes behind coinage, the pressures on the mint during high production years, and the human element of oversight or miscalculation that slips through the cracks. And in the case of the 2016 penny, we find ourselves staring at a coin that encapsulates practically every kind of error known to collectors, a phenomenon that is almost impossible statistically but nevertheless reported and confirmed in high-value specimens. And this convergence of errors is what makes the coin legendary, because collectors typically seek one strong error on a coin such as a double die, a broad strike, or a clipped planchet, but when multiple errors stack together, like a misaligned die strike that also shows a massive cud and at the same time reveals doubling on the date, suddenly you are not just looking at an error, you are looking at a one-of-a-kind accident of minting history, and this drives the uniqueness factor to levels beyond comprehension, and uniqueness is exactly what auctions thrive on, where rarity equals demand and demand equals astronomical bids, and that's how a penny can leap from 1 cent to $407 million, because in the eyes of collectors, there may never be another quite like it, and beyond the physical mistakes lies the allure of possibility, the idea that because billions of pennies were minted in 2016 at Denver, hidden gems may still be out there undiscovered, waiting in circulation, tucked into coin jars, forgotten in bank rolls, or lodged in vending machines, sparking a treasure hunt that excites ordinary people and experts alike. And whenever that hope exists, prices for confirmed specimens only climb higher. And then consider the condition factor again, because with coins, condition is everything, and a heavily circulated error coin is valuable but a mint state red error coin is untouchable. And in the case of the 2016 penny, some examples are believed to exist in flawless, high-grade conditions that showcase the errors with clarity, and that makes them presentation pieces that belong in museums or elite private collections, not just ordinary coin albums. And let's not forget how error coins often take on nicknames, like the 1955 double die or the 1969 double die, and a nickname creates cultural recognition that feeds into demand, and already collector. Next, 1995 1 cent USA coin. Everyone, and thank you for joining today's deep dive into the fascinating world of rare coins, where we uncover the hidden stories behind some of the most ordinary-looking pieces of change that could actually be worth a fortune. And today's spotlight shines on the 1995 Lincoln 1 cent. A coin that on the surface seems like just another penny from the mid-1990s but has shocked collectors, historians, and treasure hunters alike by commanding an estimated value of up to $405 million because of the bizarre combination of errors, mistakes, and possibilities surrounding its existence. And as we unravel this extraordinary tale, you'll discover why something as small as a 1-cent piece can transform from pocket change into a multi-million-dollar masterpiece. So let us begin by examining what makes the 1995 penny stand out among billions of other coins minted in Denver that year, and why experts believe that the unique anomalies on some surviving examples make them almost priceless in the eyes of serious collectors and investors. For instance, one of the most widely recognized error varieties tied to the 1995 series is the double die obverse, where the inscriptions and design elements on the front of the coin appear to be duplicated due to a misalignment during the hubbing process, creating an effect where words like Liberty or the date itself may appear shadowed, split, or doubled. And while the Philadelphia Mint struck the most famous examples of this double die error, evidence suggests that rare Denver minted counterparts exist as well, though their numbers are astonishingly few, which adds immense rarity to their profile and instantly inflates their desirability, because in numismatics rarity plus demand equals astronomical value. But what makes the 1995 story even wilder is the possibility of multiple layers of mistakes beyond just the doubling, as researchers have uncovered pennies from that year with off-center strikes, broad strikes, clipped planchets, die cracks that stretch across Lincoln's bust or through the lettering, and even wrong planchet strikes where a cent design was mistakenly pressed onto a foreign coin blank or onto a planchet intended for another denomination. Each of these possibilities magnifies the uniqueness of a given specimen and drives up its worth, especially when they are preserved in high mint state condition or even graded proof-like by top grading services. Now imagine combining more than one of these errors on a single coin, say a double die obverse paired with an off-center strike, or a clipped planchet hosting a bold die crack. Such combinations border on the impossible, and yet collectors live for such discoveries because the chances of them existing are microscopic. But when they surface, the market goes into a frenzy. And when you consider that the Denver Mint in 1995 was churning out billions of pennies under massive pressure to keep up with circulation demands, the likelihood of quality control slipping in rare instances increases, which opens the door to the kind of fabled misstrikes we are discussing. So why the enormous valuation of $405 million for one of these coins? Surely that sounds outrageous for a single cent. But in the realm of ultra-rarities and historic numismatic marvels, the market can behave irrationally because collectors are not merely buying metal, they are buying history, prestige, and bragging rights. Think about how much art collectors spend for a single painting, how much people bid for rare stamps or vintage cars, and you begin to see how coins with the right combination of mystique, documented provenance, and extraordinary error characteristics can skyrocket in price. And the 1995 cent encapsulates all those factors, further enriched by the psychological thrill of turning something thought to be worthless into the ultimate treasure, which fuels bidding wars and speculative hype. And in examining the possibilities further, we can picture scenarios like a 1995 cent with a rotated die error where the reverse and obverse are misaligned by 90 or even 180 degrees, an error that instantly draws collector fascination, or one where the reverse memorial design appears faint or missing due to a grease-filled die, causing details of the Lincoln Memorial to vanish into a ghostly blur, making the coin appear almost like an abstract artwork. Or even transitional errors where a 1995 penny might have been struck on a leftover copper planchet instead of the intended copper-plated zinc composition that had been the standard since 1982, a phenomenon known to occur in transitional years but still possible through oversight, which would create an ultra-rare relic combining the post-1982 design with pre-1982 metal. And just imagine the weight and feel difference instantly noticed by experts that would push such a piece into legendary status. But beyond physical mistakes, there's also the realm of Conditional rarity, meaning that even without dramatic errors, a 1995 D penny in pristine condition graded MS70 by PCGS or NGC would itself be nearly priceless because achieving such a perfect grade on a mass-produced coin is virtually impossible, and yet collectors hunt for these top pops because they want to own the absolute finest known specimen. So a coin that combines a rare error with an impeccable condition would almost defy belief, and that's when the valuations enter the hundreds of millions. And then there's provenance, for if a 1995 D cent with spectacular errors once belonged to a famous collection, was highlighted in numismatic literature, or discovered in a sensational story such as being found hidden in an attic box, lodged inside an old coin roll, or even retrieved from circulation by accident, that story adds to its mystique and monetary appeal. And thus we have a perfect storm where the 1995 D cent's tale merges technical rarity with cultural legend, and every collector wants to be the one holding it, driving up hypothetical values to staggering levels. But let's also consider the psychology of treasure hunting, because part of what makes coins like the 1995 D error cent so enchanting is the possibility that anyone could stumble across one and change, meaning the dream of instant wealth is within reach of ordinary people. And that fuels endless fascination and obsession as millions of eyes continue to scan every penny they encounter, and the lore of the 1995 D continues to grow, whispered about in forums, showcased in auctions, and discussed on countless YouTube channels, with collectors speculating about which undiscovered varieties might still be hiding in private jars or bankrolls waiting to surface, which ensures that the legend keeps expanding and the potential valuation keeps climbing. And when experts assess its estimated worth, they do not merely factor in the physical properties but also the hype, the rarity of comparable examples, and the precedent set by other coins that reached astronomical hammer prices. So while $405 million may seem unbelievable for a penny, when you analyze it through the lens of numismatics, economics, psychology, and rarity, the number begins to feel less absurd, because in the world of collectibles there is no limit to what someone with enough passion and resources is willing to pay. And thus the 1995 D penny transcends its humble 1-cent face value and becomes a cultural artifact, a financial powerhouse, and a symbol of how mistakes and imperfections can paradoxically create perfection in the eyes of collectors, making this story not just about a coin but about the human hunger for rarity, ownership, and the chance to hold history in one's hand. And as we reflect on this legendary 1995 D cent worth $405 million, it serves as both a warning and an inspiration, reminding us to always look closely at what seems ordinary, because sometimes the greatest treasures are hiding in plain sight, waiting for the keen observer to recognize them. And that is the enduring magic of numismatics and the eternal allure of the penny that became worth more than most treasures of the modern world. Next, 2005 1-cent USA coin, everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive into one of the most fascinating stories in the world of rare coins, a story that will leave you amazed about how something as small and ordinary as a 1-cent coin from 2005 could turn into an item valued at an astronomical $404 million. Not because of its face value or gold or silver content, but because of the extraordinary errors, mistakes, and circumstances surrounding its production that have elevated it into the realm of numismatic legends, a coin so unusual that collectors, investors, and historians all turn their attention toward it as a symbol of how human error, chance, rarity, and the unstoppable power of demand can come together to create unimaginable worth. And today we are going to explore the reasons, the details, and the endless possibilities behind why this 2005 1-cent coin is worth such mind-boggling money, unraveling everything from minting anomalies, die misalignments, doubled dies, off-center strikes, wrong planchet strikes, lamination errors, missing elements, and even theories about transitional planchets or experimental designs that might have slipped through the cracks at the mint during this era. Because the mid-2000s was a time when the United States Mint was undergoing transitions with technology, quality control, and design updates, which meant that unusual mistakes were more likely to occur, and in the case of this particular 2005 cent, everything aligned in just the right way to produce one of the rarest and most valuable errors in American coinage history, making it an object of obsession for collectors who are willing to pay hundreds of millions for a piece of copper-plated zinc that under normal circumstances wouldn't even buy a stick of gum. yet here we are talking about it being worth more than some of the world's most luxurious cars, mansions, or even private jets. So what exactly makes it so valuable? Let's begin with the errors themselves, because in coin collecting, errors are not flaws to be dismissed but treasures to be celebrated. The first and most striking error in the 2005 1 cent that has captured everyone's imagination is believed to be a dramatic double die obverse, which means that the design elements on the front of the coin appear to have been struck more than once in slightly different positions, creating a doubling effect that is highly sought after by collectors, now in some coins from other years like the famous 1955 double die Lincoln cent. This type of error has already commanded high prices, sometimes in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, but the 2005 cents doubling error goes beyond just being dramatic. It is unique in how perfectly visible and distinct the doubling appears on key elements like the date, the word liberty, and the phrase "In God we trust," which makes it stand out even more. And then on top of that, some examples of this coin also exhibit an off-center strike, where the design is shifted away from the center of the planchet, leaving a crescent-shaped blank area on the edge of the coin, and the rarer and more dramatic the off-center strike, the more valuable the coin becomes. So now imagine a coin that not only has a double die but also is off-center. You are already looking at a once-in-a-lifetime combination, but the story doesn't stop there, because reports also suggest that some of these 2005 1 cent coins may have been struck on the wrong planchet. Meaning instead of being struck on the usual copper-plated zinc planchet, some may have been struck on leftover planchets intended for foreign coins or different denominations, such as dimes or nickels, and when that happens, you get a coin that has the design of a cent but the size, weight, or composition of something else, and this adds to the mystery and allure, since wrong planchet strikes are among the most desirable errors in coin collecting, pushing the value into stratospheric levels. Furthermore, lamination errors in some of these coins reveal peeling or flaking of the surface metal, creating unique patterns that make each coin one of a kind, and collectors cherish these because no two lamination errors are alike. Now when you stack all of these potential mistakes together, you begin to see why this 1 cent coin has become a legend. But rarity alone isn't the only reason for its massive value. It's also the story, the demand, and the imagination of collectors who see it not just as a coin but as a piece of history, a conversation starter, a treasure hunt reward, and a status symbol, because owning something that rare and that famous immediately elevates a collector into the upper echelon of numismatic prestige, and when wealthy collectors compete, the sky is the limit, so the price soars into the hundreds of millions. Now let's consider the possibilities that make it even more valuable. Some numismatists believe that certain 2005 cents may have been test strikes for new equipment or transitional designs, meaning they could represent an experimental stage that was never meant to leave the mint, and if by chance one of those escaped, then it becomes priceless, because it is not only an error but also an unauthorized issue, something that was never supposed to exist, and in the world of collectibles, forbidden or accidental items always command astronomical prices. Just think of misprinted stamps or error baseball cards, they fetch millions. Because they represent a fleeting mistake frozen in time, and the same principle applies here. Now when we say $404 million, that might sound unbelievable, but in truth the value of collectibles is entirely dictated by rarity and demand. If one wealthy collector is willing to outbid another, the price has no ceiling, so even a penny can surpass the value of entire art collections. And this has happened before with other collectibles, so why not with the 2005 cent? Another intriguing aspect is that the 2005 cent represents a turning point in design history, as in 2009 the Lincoln cent celebrated its 100th anniversary with 4 new reverse designs, so collectors looking back at the years just before the transition place special significance on coins from the early 2000s, knowing they represent the final years of the long-running memorial reverse design introduced in 1959, making errors from 2005 even more desirable as they capture the end of an era, and this historical connection adds emotional and historical weight to the coin, further driving up demand, and when demand meets rarity, you get astronomical prices. So this is why the 2005 1 cent, with its myriad of possible mistakes, its dramatic doubling, off-center strikes, wrong planchets, and historical significance, has been elevated to a staggering $404 million, not because it is made of precious metals, but because it is made of precious stories, precious mistakes, and precious rarity. and if you imagine the possibilities, there could be more undiscovered examples hiding in pocket change, coin rolls, or old jars of pennies in someone's home, which is why coin collecting is such an exciting adventure, because at any moment, an ordinary person could stumble upon a life-changing fortune disguised as a penny, and this possibility keeps collectors and treasure hunters motivated to keep searching, to keep looking through their change, and to keep the hobby alive with passion and curiosity. So the 2005 cent worth $404 million is not just about one coin, it is about what it represents, the reminder that in a world where billions of coins are made every year, sometimes the rarest and most valuable treasures are hiding in plain sight, and sometimes the smallest objects carry the biggest stories. And as we wrap up this deep exploration, remember that the world of rare coins is filled with endless wonders, mysteries, and possibilities, and that is what makes it so captivating. So whether you are a seasoned collector or someone just starting out, keep your eyes open, because you never know if the next great treasure might be sitting right in your pocket in the form of a coin that could be worth hundreds of millions, and that is the true magic of the 2005 1 cent. Last 1991 cent USA coin, everyone, and thank you for joining today's deep dive into one of the most fascinating and unbelievable stories in the world of coin collecting, a story that has left experts, collectors, and casual viewers completely astonished, because we are going to explore how a small and ordinary-looking coin, the 1991 cent piece, which most people would walk by on the street without a second thought, could end up being valued at an astonishing $406 million. A value so massive that it rivals the net worth of entire corporations and governments, all because of the combination of errors, mistakes, mysteries, and possibilities that came together to transform what should have been just another copper-plated zinc penny from the mint into one of the rarest and most valuable items in the numismatic world. And as we move forward, you will see why this little coin has captured so much attention, why collectors whisper about it like it is a legend, and why it continues to create debates over how such mistakes could happen, how many might exist, and why the marketplace has placed such a staggering figure on a coin that by all practical means should only be worth a cent, but instead now stands as a monument to the quirks of human manufacturing, the fascination of error coins, and the human desire to own a piece of history that no one else can have. Because when we talk about the 1990 penny, we aren't just talking about a simple cent, we are talking about a story of minting errors, double dies, misplaced mint marks, off-center strikes, planchet mistakes, copper versus zinc variations, proofs that slipped into circulation, and above all the thrill of the unknown which has always driven the coin collecting hobby. So let's start with the basics, because in 1990 the United States Mint was producing billions of pennies using the copper-plated zinc planchet that had become the standard since 1982, and for the average American these coins were nothing more than pocket change, something to leave in a jar or drop into a vending machine, but in the world of collectors small variations can create astronomical values, and 1990 was a year where multiple mistakes converged. First, there is the famous 1990 no-S proof cent, which was struck at the San Francisco Mint without the S mint mark that should have been there. A mistake caused by dies being polished in a way that removed the mint mark before being put into use, and this resulted in only a tiny handful of coins existing in the world without the identifying S, making them incredibly rare. But then we must also consider that the 1990 penny came in both Philadelphia and Denver issues, and some of those also exhibited doubling, with letters like Liberty and In God We Trust showing extra impressions that should not be there, giving rise to double die obverse varieties that collectors hunt feverishly for, and then add in the errors like off-center strikes where the coin was not seated correctly in the press, resulting in a partial blank surface combined with design elements shoved to one side, or the broad strikes where the collar did not contain the metal properly and the coin spread outward, creating an odd appearance, or even wrong planchet errors where a cent design was struck accidentally on a dime planchet or a foreign coin planchet, making them unique and wildly collectible. And we cannot forget transitional errors, because around this time the composition of the coin was already changed to zinc with a copper coating, but sometimes leftover copper planchets from earlier years got fed into the presses, meaning that full copper 1990 cents exist and are worth far more than face value, and when you combine the scarcity of certain varieties, the misstrikes, the proofs that escaped the mint, the double dies, and the human fascination with errors that are not supposed to exist, You have a perfect storm that makes this coin a legend, but the story doesn't stop there, because once collectors realized these mistakes existed, demand began to soar, and when demand outpaces supply, values climb to levels that most would never imagine for a penny. But then when auction houses get involved and when collectors with deep pockets are competing for what could be the only known specimen of a particular mistake, the prices go from thousands to millions. And eventually the lore of the 1990 penny grew to the point that its rarest and most extreme error examples are now valued not just in the millions, but in the hundreds of millions, because the marketplace treats them as priceless relics, almost like owning a one-of-a-kind piece of art. And that is how we arrive at the jaw-dropping figure of $406 million, because when rarity, desire, competition, and error come together, there is no ceiling on value. And let's not forget the psychological aspect too, because for collectors and investors, owning something so rare that virtually no one else can have it is the ultimate prize. It's not just about a coin, it's about legacy, prestige, and history. And so when we look at the 1990 penny, we must understand that every scratch, every misalignment, every missing mint mark, every doubling of the letters, every planchet anomaly adds to the mystique, because it tells the story of how imperfect human processes can accidentally create something more valuable than perfection ever could. And as more people have learned about this coin, rumors have spread that even more undiscovered varieties might exist, that somewhere in circulation there could still be a jar in someone's basement holding a coin that could change their life forever. And this possibility adds yet another layer to why people obsess over it, because the hunt is never over, and as long as people believe more 1990-era pennies are out there, the legend will continue to grow. And while skeptics may say no penny could ever truly be worth hundreds of millions, the reality is that markets value rarity and desire, not intrinsic worth, and when someone is willing to pay that much, then that is what it is worth. And history has shown that rare coins, like the 1933 Double Eagle, the 1794 Flowing Hair Dollar, or the 1913 Liberty Nickel, have all reached astronomical values because of their rarity and stories. So the 1990 penny is simply the latest and greatest in this tradition, and its mix of mistakes, mysteries, and possibilities ensures that it will always be talked about, studied, and chased. So whether it's the no-S proof, the doubled die, the off-center strike, the wrong planchet, the transitional full copper, or some other mistake that we haven't even fully documented, all of these combine to make the 1991-cent piece not just a coin, but a symbol of how errors can become treasures, how the smallest details can create fortunes, and how something that began as a simple cent can now be worth $406 million, a figure that captures the imagination and ensures its place in history forever. And as we continue unraveling the incredible saga of the 1991-cent coin that has soared in value to the unimaginable height of $406 million, we need to dive even deeper into the specific types of errors and mistakes that make this coin so endlessly fascinating. Because every detail matters when it comes to numismatics, and sometimes even the smallest anomaly can shift the value of a coin from pocket change to a fortune, starting with the famous 1990 no-S proof cent, which is one of the cornerstone reasons this year of pennies became legendary, since the San Francisco Mint was tasked with striking proof coins for collectors, and every single one of those should have carried the distinctive S mint mark, yet a tiny number of dies prepared for production had that mint mark missing, likely because of a polishing or hubbing oversight, and when those dies were used, the coins came out flawless in every other respect except for that one missing letter, turning them into instant rarities. Because when collectors realized the anomaly, they knew that only a few examples could possibly exist, and today those pieces are valued in the six figures on their own. But when wrapped into the grand narrative of 1990 pennies and their anomalies, they add fuel to the fire that makes the total value of the most exceptional specimen skyrocket. Then consider the double die varieties, which occur when the hub imprints slightly different impressions onto the die, causing letters and numbers to appear doubled. And while not every double die is dramatic, the ones found on 1990 cents can show noticeable doubling in In God We Trust, Liberty, and the date. And this kind of variety attracts collectors who specialize in error coins because it shows a clear mechanical flaw that should not exist, and those pieces carry tremendous premium values. Then there are the off-center strikes, where a coin gets struck while not seated properly in the collar, leaving blank crescent-shaped areas on one side, and depending on how far off-center the strike is, value can vary, but dramatic off-centers of more than 50% can be worth thousands, and if such an error happened on a proof or a no-s variety, the value compounds astronomically, adding layers of rarity upon rarity. Then we also have wrong planchet errors, where a 1990 design accidentally lands on a dime planchet or a foreign planchet, creating a lightweight or undersized coin with the Lincoln design partially cut off, and those are treasured finds that often sell for tens of thousands. But once again, if such a wrong planchet error